Today we have a very special guest, Mr. Josh Smith.
What's happening, man?
How you doing, man? We're live from Flat 5.
That's right. We're live at my studio, Flat 5. Dude, thanks for coming over.
Yeah, thanks for having me, man.
You're welcome.
I know this is crazy times, but, I appreciate you, letting me come over and, kind of like share your world with the rest of the world.
Thanks, man. I'm happy to do it.
Yeah, speaking of which, you've been doing a great job of that. I see your channel is doing really well, man. I'm really happy for you.
I'm trying, man. I appreciate it. Yeah, it's weird, I had let YouTube kind of lack a little bit. I've been focused on, number one, just working, but number two, I guess Instagram for the most part, and Facebook too, as far as a way of communicating with fans. And the pandemic certainly gave me plenty of time to evaluate how I reach people, and so I decided to dive into YouTube a little bit more, and it's been actually pretty rewarding. Like, people seem to dig it, and so for now I'll continue on with this amount of effort.
Yeah, man. It's like it's all about connection. Like when we play and when we do what we do,
of course. And
to maintain that connection, even in these crazy times, you gotta I guess adapt. So I think you're doing a really good job of that, man. I see you're posting like 3 times a week, right?
I'm trying to post 3 times a week, like a more in-depth video on Monday about whatever the topic may be. Could be a lesson or just a bunch of random thoughts.
Right.
Something during the middle of the week that's more of an oddball. Again, it could be a lesson or a blog or maybe a performance. I'm trying to keep the middle of the week a little more improvisational. And then on the weekend, the interview, the live from Flat 5 with my friends, and people seem to be digging those, which is cool.
Yeah, I've been digging all of them, man. Like as a guitarist and a fan, by the way, I can appreciate like all of them, because one of them is like very just like impromptu. What do you call them? Like quick and dirty or something?
Yeah, quick and dirty.
Yeah, but those really you have a good ability to kind of make things concise. So you're delivering a lot of information, but like you said, quick and dirty. Like, here it is. No fluff, check this out. And I think those are very, like, you can learn a lot if you really, like, just watch those.
Well, that's the way that I learned. It was like, let me learn this thing and let me get that under my fingers until I know that one. It wasn't like I tried not to be so broad as a kid, like I had to learn all this stuff. I tried to really get stuff under my fingers before I moved on to something else. And, I know... you're tempted to, when you make these videos, to like hold people's hands and talk them through every little thing. And I realized I did not want to do that from the beginning. It was like, hey, I'm just going to talk the way I talk and show you it the way that I think about it. And that's it. And if you glean a little insight from that or gain something, then great. And if not, I apologize for maybe, moving too quickly, but that's just kind of the way I wanted to handle it.
Right. Well, and there's different kinds of lessons for different kinds of students.
Absolutely.
Like I noticed you did the True Fire series.
Yeah.
I think that's like something where if you really want the full, like, one-on-one kind of like, I'm going to sit down and this guy's going to walk me through it.
Yes. That's
where you want to go for that. But
Absolutely.
I think the quick and dirty is great for someone like me who's like, a fan of the blues, but not necessarily steeped in it. You know what I'm saying?
Sure.
I can glean something very quickly from what you're playing, because I can already play.
Right.
And be like, all right, that's his concept on this.
Yeah.
And then start incorporating it that same day versus like...
Yeah, which is the key to actually getting something in your vocabulary, is how quick you apply it. So, hopefully these little quick nuggets and things that I can show people, they can, if there was a gig, they would take it right to the gig.
Right.
But otherwise, hopefully they can at least start to apply them quickly and ingratiate them into their vocab. Yeah.
Well, so that brings me to an interesting little fact about us. We're both kind of like from the same stomping grounds. I'm from Miami, and you're from...
I'm from Pembroke Pines, Florida, which is in between Miami and Fort Lauderdale, Broward County, kind of right on the line.
Yeah, I used to teach in Pembroke Pines for like ever when I was in college. I had like a mess of students at this place called Music Tech.
Okay, where's that?
It was right off the main drag, like right in the heart of Pembroke, like whatever the main street is. Yeah. And man, I used, so we've probably been to all the same kind of venues and music stores. And what were some of the spots? Because I've been watching the Flat 5 series. Yeah. And you mentioned, like, you dropped little things that, like, for somebody from Miami, it's like nostalgic, Oh, yeah. I heard you mention, like, the Musicians Exchange.
Musicians Exchange was the most important for me because... number one, it was where all the touring blues and jazz artists would come in Broward County to play. So we would go there. It was also the first place I went where they would let me sit in on like, blues jam night on Monday nights. And,
Well, when you say sit in, how old are you at this point?
12 and 13
yeah,
years
so
old.
You already had
so
it
I needed
going.
to go places where they'd even let me in with my parents, and
Right.
I'd sign the list and get up and play a couple songs. And it got, the Musicians Exchange, iconic. Like everybody came there. Buddy Guy and Junior Wells came there.
Right.
Junior Walker and the All-Stars, but like McCoy Tyner came there.
Yeah, it was legendary.
Average White Band, like jazz, blues, R&B, soul, they were all coming to play
National
acts. So we would go there on the weekends and I would just get an education. I would see all these acts. And eventually, as I kind of got a little reputation in the scene, people would say to the art, you should get Josh to sit in, this kid, So a lot of people would ask me to sit in. So I got to like play with a lot of really cool people in that early time. And that, it was like being in school. It was a really great environment.
Yeah. You learn so much on stage that you can't learn in a practice room. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah. And it was like also seeing how some of the heavyweights of the industry, like how they handle themselves, how nice they were, which ones weren't so nice. It was like making little mental notes about how to be in this business, and what I wanted to be. And, I was so young. And then my dad, he's a really smart guy and he's, got a PhD and he had been a therapist and worked in all sorts of stuff. And he got burnout and he opened a restaurant with my mom. They opened a restaurant because he just wanted to do something other than wear a suit and tie. So anyways, then when I started going to all these jams, he took night job at the Musicians Exchange, cooking in their kitchen, running the kitchen.
Wow.
So that I could go with him all the time. So I would go on the weekends when it was like load-in time and sound check. So like Warren Haynes and Government Mule would roll up and sound check and I'd just be hanging out. Or Steve Morse, Dixie Dregs would come to sound check and I'd be hanging out. I'd bring them their food, and I'd talk. So I'd get talking and it was like quite an education to be around that type of stuff.
Yeah, I think that was one of my favorite shows at Musician Exchange was Steve
Dixie
Morse.
Dregs?
Yeah. They were outrageous, man.
Yeah.
That was a great... South Florida is a great hub for musicians.
Oh, yeah.
As far as, growing the talent. There's not, the scene that there is, out here in other cities.
Yeah.
So, we don't have the outlet for playing, but for as far as, talent, there was no shortage.
And you had guys coming from out of state, too, to go to UM, especially in the 80s. Like, you had an influx because of Pat Metheny and all that whole scene. You had all these people wanting to go to UM to learn jazz and the JACO connection and the whole thing. So, you had, there's a huge contingent of UM guys out here.
Yeah.
Like a huge contingent.
In LA, for sure. Yeah. It's cool just, to hear about those places because I've been gone for so long that it feels like a universe apart from where I'm at now.
Sure.
I don't know. Do you feel that way about it?
It does. Like when I go back, it's not the same as it was, and all the places I played are gone.
Same.
Musicians Exchange, Tobacco Road in Miami. I played there.
Oh yeah, Tobacco Road
200 times probably. And it's gone. I actually was talking to Jonathan Kreisberg, great guitar player.
Yeah.
And I interviewed him. It'll be on later on my channel. And we used to play. Tobacco Road had a downstairs stage and an upstairs stage, and him and his trio would be downstairs playing jazz, and I'd be upstairs playing blues. And I'm 4'14", 15. He's 18, 20, in college.
So my theory is right that we were probably standing in one of those venues at the same time.
I'm sure.
I was probably downstairs checking out KRIESBERG.
Probably.
Yeah, and you were upstairs playing.
Probably. Yeah.
Yeah, man. I used to love that place, man. That was like a staple for sure. In Miami.
Absolutely. Yeah.
And it had such an interesting history with the whole Al Capone connection.
Yes, that's
one
right.
of the oldest venue in Miami.
Well, it was the oldest liquor license in Dade County in Miami.
Yeah. I think unfortunately in the late '90s it finally or
something like that. Early. Yeah, it was. It's been at least 10 years since it's been gone. Yeah.
Yeah. It was sad when I saw the article. Yeah.
Me too.
Yeah. What was that one band that was the people always?
Ico.
Yeah. I was not necessarily a fan, but they earned their they paid their dues.
Absolutely.
Man. They were there.
Know those guys very well.
Day in, day out. They were like the band there.
Absolutely.
Yeah, man. That was a great place. Yeah, man, Miami. So tell me, what is the transition? Because, every guitar player, every musician, every artist goes through these, little, not epiphanies, but these little, transitional moments where it's like, okay, this is the next phase.
Sure.
So you're 12 years old. You're sitting in with these guys.
Yeah.
You're gleaning all this information.
Yeah.
You're getting experience. You're hanging out with Steve Morse. Yeah, like that.
Right.
Super cool, right?
Yeah, he told me about flying airplanes. He was big into piloting. I'm sure he still is.
Yeah.
So I remember he had his tie-dye shirt on. I brought him his chicken tenders or whatever.
Yeah.
And he was telling me about like flying planes and stuff. And he used to write. You remember he used to write a monthly column in Guitar for the Practicing Musician?
Yeah, he used to read.
And so I asked him all about that because I read that every month. You know, he was really, really friendly. Yeah.
So how do you go from, okay, there's this kid who can play blues,
Yeah.
to like now you're like you're in your teens or whatever. What's the transition? Like,
Well, the main thing that happened was a group of adults had a band called the Rhino Cats, and they had another open jam that I would frequent and sit in, and the crowd would, react because little kid playing guitar.
Gotcha.
But they kind of saw, like, number one, that I could play, and I was serious about it. But also they saw, like, hey, maybe if we, like, have this kid join the band, maybe we could book some different kind of gigs, like some, maybe more money, gigs, whatever. But, so I was, like, 100% on board. They were like, you want to play with us? I said, yeah, absolutely. So, yeah, then I was in a band, So it was like... Then gigs became like not just like going to this jam or that jam. It was like, no, I've got this on Thursday and this on Saturday and this. So it was like, oh, now I'm really a member of a band. We had rehearsals. And then, this sounds silly because I'm 13 years old, but I started writing songs. And I would tell them, hey, can we learn this song that I wrote? So we did. We would learn. And it was like so gratifying to like have an outlet, even though these guys were 40s pushing 50 and I was 13. It was still, I felt like a real member of a band for the first time, and that's what really got things going, because people started to come to shows. We started to build up a little following. So then it was like, oh, maybe we should make a record. We could sell it at the show. So we did. We made a CD, and so I wrote like half the songs on that CD, as a kid. And we did another one, and then we would tour around Florida because people were interested. So it'd be like we'd go as far up as Jacksonville or Orlando, Daytona, Bike Week in Daytona, all that type of stuff.
This is all before the internet, right?
Well, yeah, this is before AOL was maybe kind of a thing, dial up,
So it was like word of mouth mainly.
Yeah, it was all word of mouth. You remember like Rag Magazine and XS Magazine down there, and Jam Magazine, that stuff.
I was looking through some pics and I saw your name on there.
There's a Rag Magazine where I'm on the cover and Jonathan KRIESBERG is also on the cover.
Yeah, man.
I sent him that picture. Yeah.
That's legendary, man.
Yeah.
Because like KRIESBERG to us jazz heads or fusion heads, he was like, like Moses or something.
Jonathan down there as a kid, because he played in a rock band. What was the name of it? Now I'm drawing a
Third Wish?
Yeah, Third Wish.
Yeah.
Third Wish. And then he started the trio. And I remember seeing him at Tobacco Road playing a Strat. That drummer had like a bell tower. Yeah. They were playing Beatles tunes and stuff. But fusion,
yeah.
And I mean, I remember when he moved to New York and it was like, oh, I'm going to go straight ahead.
Yeah, it was like 175 and a Fender amp, and that's it.
It's like they issue you a 175 when you move to New York. You have to ditch your other gear, and here's a 175.
Right. And a Metro Pass. Yeah, man. Yeah, KRIESBERG was like it to us. We would follow him.
What about Randy Bernsen, man? Did you go see Randy Bernsen?
Yeah, man. He was a one-man band. Like,
absolutely.
It was incredible. Well, it was a trio mostly, but he could do stuff like on his own that you could just be like, what?
Yep. Because I had been these guys. I started playing with these adults. Their fathers were jazz musicians, because there was a keyboard guitar player, singer, and a bass player in this band, and their fathers had played together since the 50s playing jazz. And they played with Ira Sullivan. So they would take me to go see their parents play with Ira Sullivan, and that was like my introduction into that scene of the jazz scene in Miami. And he just passed away.
Yeah, he just passed away. He was a staple, man. He reached so many people, man. What an incredible guy.
Yes.
And I mean, he was, from what I understand, he played with Miles and all.
He played with everybody.
He was the guy.
He was also incredibly influential on JACO's path,
Yep.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, man, that's what I'm saying. Like when I try to tell people about what it was like back home, it's like weird because it's not like New York and it's not like LA. It's not like Chicago. It's not like Boston. It's its own little weird thing.
Yeah.
But the talent there was through the roof.
Well, you also have the whole Latin side of things, you know, where there is a scene for that.
Yeah.
There's a whole recording scene based around that down there. Even more so, I don't know what it's like anymore, but when I was coming up, you could make a real living doing those sessions. You know what I mean? Playing with Mark Anthony and the Estefans and all those guys. Shakira. It was all based out of there.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think it was called something Moon, Crescent Moon.
Yeah.
They're still a major
the
force.
whole sound machine.
Yeah, exactly. The rhythm's gonna get you.
Right.
Yeah, man. So, what my takeaway from what you're saying about with the Rhino Cats is that's where you really got to kind of like learn to express yourself beyond like, okay, I learned how to play these licks and stuff. Now you're learning how to be you. You're writing your own songs.
Yeah.
You getting to blow for, I guess, hours a night.
Hours on end, yeah.
And that's, man, you know, when you develop that synergy with the rhythm section, man, and you trust the guys and they trust you and you just know what's going to happen. Everybody's just like, you know, there's no better education than that. Yeah.
Yeah, it's where I learned to be a professional musician.
Right.
Even as a kid, it was like there was a moment of like, I'm no longer just this, you know,
it's not a hobby.
Little kid, you know, for fun. No, I'm a real musician now. I'm getting paid to play these gigs.
Right.
People care. Like, you know, the band is mad if I mess up. Like, there's something I have to like be a professional. You know, so. Yeah, you got to grow up fast and kind of learn how to do that. And I'm of the personality that I want to be the best I can be in whatever situation I'm in or in anything that I'm interested in. So that was my responsibility. It felt like to like get better all the time and treat this seriously. And I still feel the same way, you know? Yeah.
So this is one question that I had because I'm just a straight guitarist. I don't sing. You know, I do write, but I don't sing the songs I write. You know, I usually write for other people.
Sure.
So when did you decide, okay, I'm going to grab this thing, put one in front of me, and try to do it myself?
That was tricky because my voice hadn't quite changed all the way, you know, when I started to sing. Well, at least when I was gigging, when I was 13, you know, it was like, it was changing then, you know. And so singing was painful at first. Like I felt like I wasn't a natural. It didn't come easy to me, and it was upsetting because not the guitar came easy, but it felt right. It always felt natural to me from the beginning.
Like home.
I'm supposed to do this, you know, and singing never felt that way. So it took me years to feel comfortable, but I was willing to at least jump off the ledge and start doing it because I knew it was important. I knew like, okay, if I want to be like any of these heroes of mine, like Stevie Ray Vaughan or Jimi Hendrix, or I should sing my own songs, you know?
Yeah.
So it was like, I'm going to go ahead and try and go for it. And yeah, it was hard. And, you know, to this day, I still, you know, struggle with confidence. Like, is this as good as it could be? And I don't know, you know, I work on it a lot, but yeah, I was at least willing to take the plunge.
Well, I was going to say, you mentioned Hendrix. You know, the whole story behind Hendrix was
very self-confident.
He heard was it the songwriter
Bob Dylan?
Bob Dylan, yeah, and he was like, well, if he can do that.
Yeah, exactly. But he was super self-conscious about his voice. He didn't want people to look at him when he was singing in the studio, like when they were making the first record, because he thought he wasn't any good, you know?
Well, it's just such a personal thing, you know? Like, when you're playing the guitar, it's your voice, you know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
And, you know, you specifically have a great tone that you've dialed in over the years, and you got your own sound now that sounds like you. Like, when I hear it, oh, that's him. Mm-hmm. You know, that's your voice, but to do it with your actual voice is a whole nother thing, especially if
when
you've
you
been
start
playing
on guitar.
Yeah,
that's my biggest. I hear, because I'm hearing improv all the time. Things to do, change, do this, go here, and it comes out here. It doesn't come out here, you know. So it has to sometimes be like a conscious decision to like, hey, let me work on singing improv, you know, and doing those things, because otherwise, I just mostly hear improv for the guitar.
Same. Speaking of tone and that kind of thing, I know all these podcasts get into gear like pretty heavy.
Yeah, of course.
And I'm sure, people are going to love
our audience.
Yeah. People are going to love to see your stuff. And I'm sure they've all checked out your rig rundown and all that stuff and all the pedals that you endorse. But it seemed what I've been noticing when I listen to you talk about this stuff is that you have you're pretty aware of the sound that you want, the tone that you want.
Oh yeah, 100%.
You're not like, how these people use that term, tone chasers.
Yeah.
Like you're not just chasing it. Like you're pretty much sure what you want. So
I know what I like.
Yeah.
I am open to finding something better that does the job I need accomplished better than what I already have.
Right.
So I'm always looking for that. Like, but this is something better than even what I like. But yeah, I do have a certain kind of criteria that needs to be met for it to work for me.
How did you establish the criteria? Because I know, like you mentioned some of your influences in some of your interviews and stuff like that, but you don't sound like you're trying to copy those guys.
No, and especially not tonally. Like, as much as I learned a lot of guys' licks and stuff, I was never super obsessed with learning to get their tones 100%. For me, it was more about somewhat the playing. Like Stevie, I wanted to get Stevie's tone sometimes. Or Hendrix, there's some tones that are just like, I need to learn why that even happens. What is that tone? Univibe or Echoplex, fuzz face, whatever. But yeah, for the most part, most of my influences are built around the music side, less than the tone. Not that the tone doesn't weigh in. So I always was trying to find a tone I felt like enabled me to be as free and dynamic as I could be on my instrument, because I felt like that was like a building block that you needed to be able to be an improviser. At least it felt that way to me. Like I needed to remove things that were in the way, basically. So that's what
almost like a subtractive approach.
Yeah, so that's what always kind of led me down that path for gear choices, trying to find things that got out of my way and enabled maximum amounts of freedom and expression. So that generally means less compression, and that's the thing I care about a lot. Like, let me get a lot of headroom. Let me have less compression in my signal so that I can maximize the amount of dynamics. So it's why I like, heavy strings. It's why I like Fender scale instruments, because longer scale has more clarity, more dynamics. Single coil pickups, more dynamics than a humbucker. Not that I don't like those other kind of humbuckers and Gibson scale, but when I'm trying to do my thing, the things that bring the maximum amount of information to the party are what I go towards. Things that give me maximum dynamics.
Yeah, totally. And one thing that I noticed is that you like to mix the Vox sound with the Morgan, right? So you got the Morgan, and you got like a Fender style and a Vox style going at the same time.
Yeah.
So that reminds me of something I just heard, because Van Halen just passed away, and I've been watching all this Van Halen stuff.
Me too. Yeah.
Just reliving it again, because when I was a kid, I was a fanatic. But as you get older, you get into all these other people.
Of course.
But he did a thing where he would use these two different cabs, and one cab would have these speakers that were real, kind of bright and kind of, like shrill sort of. Yeah. And then he had this other cab that had a lot of nice mid and low end. Yeah. And that balance is what made this crazy tone that you couldn't get. And so it's almost like that Fender and the Vox thing, they give you different parts of your tone, right?
Yeah, it's not 100% about volume normally. It's about the blend of those two EQ curves, and also the way that each one of them dynamically react differently to your playing, your pickups, because the input impedance from your pickups or from whatever pedals you have on the floor will affect each amp in a different way. You know what I mean?
Right.
So when it hits two things like that at the same time, you're just going to get much more variance and spread across the spectrum of sound. And yeah, I found that Vox and Fender really worked well together. And when I kind of stumbled on that, it felt like, oh, here's another thing that to me kind of sounds like my own little formula, and I'm going to do even more of this,
Right.
So yeah, I like that combination a lot.
Yeah, and it sounds great, man. So I've seen shows where you just rock the one. When you do that, do you feel like a little emptiness in your tone? Or?
Yeah. I prefer to have the two things there, the 6L6s and the EL84s together. But I'm, you know,
make
it's first world problems. Like, I'm happy to have my Morgan or just a super reverb or something like that.
Yeah.
I can make do. But it is important if I'm going to have one amp on a gig situation, I like to have 40 watts. Like that's the sweet spot for me.
So when you mentioned headroom earlier,
yeah,
that gives you enough.
40 watts has always been like this magical level, at least on Fender style amps, where it's like it's loud, plenty loud to play any gig, but it's not like a twin where it's just sterile and you turn it up and nothing happens, you know.
Right.
40 gives you a little bit of action and things change when you turn up a little more. You get a little breakup, so it feels alive, but it still remains tight with headroom. It's always been like that magic level for clubs, which is quite honestly where I've spent most of my life. So it just works.
You know, it's funny. When I was in Florida, it was all like, you know, like your bread and butter type amps. That's what you would see around town, like at the clubs and the gigs. I mean, every once in a while you'd see a couple little boutique things. But it was always kind of like, you know, you got your Marshalls, your Voxes, and your Fenders. You know?
As a kid, it was nothing but those three things. And it was, Fender twin reverb, super reverb, deluxe reverb, or a Marshall or a Vox. That's what I saw all the time.
All the time, yeah. And then I come out here, and California is like it's almost like with the beers, they went crazy. We got every kind of beer in the world, every kind of pedal in the world, and like all these really dope amps. That's how I first found out about Morgan. Car amps. I mean, just so many dope amps out here.
Well, we live in the golden age for boutique gear. I mean, people are making unbelievable stuff, and they really care. They put a lot of effort and heart and soul into. So it's like, it's much easier now to buy gear that sounds great. Like there's an abundance of option.
Yeah, and in the last, I would say, 5 to 10 years, the portability thing has really kicked in. You know, there was a time when bigger was better, you know, like muscle cars and half stacks and full stacks and rows of full stacks. And now it's like, we got a gig, we got to carry this stuff around. And like, people really have, you know, with technology, everything's getting smaller. It was sounding better, though, which, you know, back then, it was almost like you didn't trust it. It was like, that little amp is not going to do it.
I mean, and for me, I struggle sometimes playing like a small little 112 on the gig. Like I'll do it here in the studio, that's no problem. But on the gig, I normally prefer to have two speakers, even if they're 210s, you know, just because I like the sound of two things pushing air at the same time. But I mean, technology just comes so far. You know, even though I don't do it, I know there is gear now that I could take to a gig and make work. Like I could take, I'm sure, a Kemper if I owned one, or a Helix. You know, I have a Helix. I've used it for things like I'm sure there's certain things that I could make work because it's come so far. Yeah.
But even your small pedal board, it's pretty like compact, but you got a lot of good stuff in there.
There's a lot of stuff on there. I like, you know, we're nerds. I like gear, you know, and so I like to be current on what's new in the gear world and stay on top of it. And if it helps me get the sound that I'm trying to hear in there, I'm willing to try anything. So I'm not against digital gear. I've been using Eventide H9 since the day it came out.
Yeah, that thing is unbelievable. Yeah, they definitely cracked the code with that one. It's like a Swiss Army knife.
It is a Swiss Army knife.
Yeah. I was gonna say the newest thing I've heard that you helped design, because you've been an influential part in a couple different things. Like you worked with Eminence, you did a speaker. You worked with, I don't know if you worked with Love Pedal, but you made the Chula. Like
I certainly
put it on the map.
With Love Pedal,
that thing is killing, man. I just picked up one of their Amp 11 things, and it's just beautiful, man. They
Sean
make great stuff.
has a real ear especially for dirt pedals.
Yeah,
I've never heard a Love Pedal dirt pedal. Like there may be one that this doesn't work for me, but I've never heard one where I go, that's not any good.
Right.
No, he knows what he's doing with the dirt pedals. He hears it and he plays, and I hope he's all right, because they've kind of fallen off the face of the earth. The whole Love Pedal. I don't know what's going on there, but
right. Well, I mean, it's a weird time. Well, but the thing I was kind of leading towards was the new Myriad Fuzz. So you were kind of instrumental in designing it, right?
100%, yeah.
So this is what I say when I said earlier that you kind of know what you're going for. Like, you understand the mechanics of it. Like, did you ever work on pedals or mess with pedals?
No, I don't understand. I couldn't build it, but I know enough of like what makes things sound like a certain way, what components I like. I'll do the research, and learn about why did I like this pedal over this pedal.
Gotcha.
Oh, it's because it's germanium and not silicon, or it's because it's diodes, and not ICs. And what diodes are they using? Oh, is it a germanium, a silicon, a Schottky, or like what kind of? So I want to know, and figure out what it is about certain things I like. So the Myriad Fuzz started as an idea for, well, two ideas really. A fuzz circuit that I wanted someone to build me for a number of years. And then these other ideas of, I had started to get into parallel signal chains because I always had 2 amps anyways. So I started to kind of experiment with, what if only certain pedals were on 1 amp and certain pedals were on the other? And it was even more difference between the 2 amps, and so the Myriad was to kind of help me further that along, basically. So it has the fuzz circuit in it that I designed with them, which is both germanium and silicon.
Whoa, that's neat.
Yeah, and you can bias the germanium transistor. You can kind of blend between the 2 transistors. It's an incredible fuzz that I'm so proud of. But then it's also available as a standalone, just the fuzz, the Myriad Fuzz. Then the Myriad, the big version of the pedal, has the fuzz, but then it has wet and dry outputs and a mixer with a loop. So you can put anything in the loop and then blend it with an expression pedal or a mix control through the wet output. And the fuzz can be switched between going on either output, the wet or the dry. So it enabled me to like, let me put an Echoplex in the loop or whatever, and I'll blend the Echoplex and the fuzz, but just to the little Vox amp, and I'll barely have it in there, you know what I mean, if I want, or things like that. And yeah, it's cool. It opens up a lot of new doorways.
Yeah, I heard you like playing it in this video, and I was like, wow, that's a beefy sound. Like,
it does a lot, yeah.
Yeah. There's a couple of things that really stood out to me from that small pedal board. It's not even a huge pedal board. Yeah. That you obviously the Chula, and then the Leslie sound, that's on the Eventide?
That's on the Eventide H9.
When you guys did the live stream yesterday, and you played that, I was like, bro.
Yeah.
That's a cool Leslie sound.
I dialed that thing in.
Yeah. I've heard a lot of people do that kind of thing.
Yeah.
But yours like really sounds like it's, what's the word I'm looking for? It doesn't sound overpowering, like you're trying too hard to sound like a Leslie.
Yeah, I don't want it to be like, it's because it's not a Leslie.
Right.
It's a freaking pedal.
Right, it's a guitar with that sound on it.
Exactly. So it's a caricature slightly of a Leslie sound, because you can't 100% reproduce a Leslie. I mean, I don't have a spin. That's physical.
Yeah.
So what I was going for with the H9 sound was kind of my approximation of that works a little bit better in the guitar world, through a regular speaker.
Yeah.
And I worked, a little, not hard. It sounds silly to say I tweaked this preset hard, but I did. I worked on it to get it to the way I like it. And also I have a lot of experience playing through real Leslies. I mean, I do it here in the studio a lot. There's one right behind me in this booth.
Nice.
And I also had, growing up, I still have it out in my storage, Fender Leslie Vibratone, like what Stevie Ray used and Hendrix used a little bit. So I used to gig with that all the time. I know what a guitar sounds like through a Leslie. So I have a good frame of reference for like tweaking it together. And yeah, I think that the sound I've got in the H9 is pretty good. I'm actually working on a new Leslie sound on this other pedal that I think may top it, actually, right now.
Well, that'd be sick.
But it's been my main Leslie sound since, I don't know, when the H9 come out? Almost 10 years probably now. Since then, that's been my main Leslie thing, and I use it a lot, so yeah. Yeah,
it sounds great, man. I think, obviously it's a combination of things. Like, it's a great guitar, it's a great amp.
Yeah.
You're a great player, but
Thanks.
like you found like how to balance out those 3 things. So like, like it sounds natural. It sounds really cool.
People message me at least 4 or 5 times a week. Can you send me a screenshot of your H9 Leslie settings? Sure, here I have it saved on my phone, just like quickly. Yeah, here it is.
So I'm not the first one to freak out.
No,
about
no, all the time I get that message.
Yeah, it's a cool sound, man. Yeah. But the thing that really stands out about it is because I've heard other people try to do it, and either sounds either too much of a caricature or it like the. Remember when Schofield used to do the chorus thing?
Yes. Yeah.
Like, that's its own thing, and it sounds like they're trying to do that with a Leslie, and then it gets just out of hand. It just
that's it. Like, chorus pedals as a Leslie thing are cool, too. I like it. Like, I used an Arion chorus for a long time, like the way Landau did, and it does a cool, like, it's not a Leslie sound, but it's like its own pseudo, and I like that, too, you know, but I also like, what's the Destination? No, not Destination. The Vent, the Neo Vent and the Vent Mini, that's a really good Leslie pedal. But yeah, it's almost, when I tried it, it's almost like too much like a real Leslie, and it didn't sound like right through my guitar speakers to me. Like, it just sounded like too much like I don't know.
I understand.
Yeah, because even when I use the Leslie, I'm normally combining it with an amp too, you know, so it was always like a combination. I think that's what makes my Leslie sound on the H9 work so well.
And not to rain on anybody's parade, but I don't think if they don't have the same gear you have, it's not going to sound the same through their amp, through a different.
Yeah, it'll be different. Yeah. Well, the Chula is the perfect example of that. I can't even tell you the hundreds of times people have gotten a Chula and sent me a message like, dude, how do you deal with the volume boost? Or how do you deal with how bright it is? And I'm like, well, number one, I never turn it off, so the volume boost isn't an issue. And it's part of what makes it so organic and special. And number two, it's not bright if you're playing through a real amp, like louder than like bedroom volume. Yeah, if you play like through a 5-watt amp, you know, totally dead clean, it's going to sound bright, and it's not going to have much gain at all. Because it's made for like my situation.
Right.
Little headroom, gigging, got some energy.
Yeah.
So yeah, it's not, you know, but I've got that message. It's context.
Yeah, context is everything. Yeah. Which brings me to the guitar. Like, so the Chapin, is that how you pronounce it? Bill Chapin?
Yeah, Bill Chapin.
So what did you tell him when he was making the guitar for you that would be different from, let's say, like if you bought something off the rack?
Yeah, when I met Bill, he was one of those guys who right away I knew, oh, this guy knows what he's talking about. We all know those guys. Like, this guy knows what he's doing. And I played a guitar he had built, and I was really impressed. It was a Strat somebody here in town had. And so it convinced me, you know what, I want to order a guitar. So I ordered a Strat from him first because I was playing Strat more often at the time. I just moved to L.A., so this is like 2003, something like that. So yeah, I ordered a Sonic Blue Stratocaster, got it, was killer, became my main guitar like that. And Bill told me, hey man, I guarantee you the second guitar I ever build you will be the one. I'm like, really? Why? And he's like, because I'll have seen you now play a guitar I built and know like what worked and what didn't work and what I should change slightly just from hearing you play like my pickups, my guitar, my thing, because he makes everything himself. Like, and he's a very like creative guy. He picks like even like the pots and caps are for that pickup, for that guitar, for that, like it's all about that user and that guitar. So I was like, all right, well, we'll see. So it came time to get a second guitar, and I ordered actually an Esquire. I wanted an Esquire single pickup Telecaster, a pine bodied one, because I had played a old Fender prototype called the Snakehead, which the first ones were pine, these Esquires, before the Telecaster came out. And I was blown away by it. And I was like, I want a guitar like that, real beat up and, you know, simple. He said, okay, cool. And then I got hired for this touring gig with this guy, Taylor Hicks, and I knew I needed a Telecaster for that gig, and I had sold the last one I had owned. So I didn't have a Tele at the moment. And so I said, Bill, how close are you on that pine body? He's like, oh, I haven't even started the body, but I made the neck already. And I was like, well, can you make an ash body and just make me a Telecaster? He's like, well, when do you need it? I'm like, as soon as you could possibly do it. And he's like, well, can it be a solid color? Because it'll be fast if it's just solid. So yeah, just paint it black, whatever. So he did. He cut an ash body and painted it black and put the guitar together. And sure enough, it was like, it got here and it was overnight. Like, holy shit, this is my guitar.
This is it. So yeah, when you mentioned the way he like listens and he like kind of like makes it for the person. It makes me think of guys like Les Paul and like Leo Fender and how like design was back then versus how design is now.
Yeah.
You know, like you really like, it's even like mixing and how everything was. It was like you sit in the room, you see what's actually happening, and then based off of that, you make a decision about the sound.
Yeah, same way Dumble made every amp individual for the people who bought it from him.
Yeah,
you know? So yeah, the circuit is the same. A Telecaster is a Telecaster.
Right.
But you may use a different pickup because this guy plays different
and
uses different strings. So he knew after that first guitar, I use really heavy strings, and you know, he should maybe try something a little different that might work magnetically better with my strings because there's more output from those strings. So everything went into then the tweak of the next one, and it was like, it worked. He figured it out, you know, cracked the code.
Yeah, there's something about that practical like thinking when you're designing stuff that I think sometimes gets overlooked in modern stuff. You know?
Sure,
like,
absolutely.
Like it's to be used. You know what I'm saying? So you got to think about the final user, the output, what they're going for.
Right.
Yeah. So anyways,
so it's been my main guitar since 2005, I guess. Yeah.
So it's like your right hand, basically. Yeah.
It is. It is, and I don't want to say replacing it, but I'm kind of getting ready to replace it soon.
Well, I've heard rumors.
A new signature guitar that I've been working on, and unfortunately, I can't say what it is, but
no, of course,
it'll be announced in January, and I've literally been working on it for almost 2 full years.
Wow.
Like go back and forth, prototype, pickups, everything, because I just want it to be slamming. I want no chance anybody picks it up and goes, no, this ain't that good. No, I want it to be, whoa, this guitar is great, you know? So I'm really excited about it, and it will be announced in January during like the virtual NAMM.
Right.
And then shortly after that to stores and all that.
Awesome,
big
man.
Company.
Congratulations.
So it'll be easy to find, but that's all I can say about it.
Yeah, I understand. I know I asked you about it before, but I was like, I'm not going to keep bugging
No,
them.
people are asking me all the time now because I hadn't even said anything. And I said, just Pete Thorne interviewed me like a month ago, and I just said that. Like, oh, yeah, well, I do have a signature guitar because he asked, like, why don't I? And yeah, ever since then, it's been everybody's guessing what it is and when is it, you know, asking me questions. So, well,
I saw on the chat yesterday people guessing.
So everybody just assumes Fender. So
right.
We'll see about it.
Yeah.
Maybe it is.
Right. Yeah, man. Well, I can't say how much I'm impressed with like how you took something that you know like that you started off with one sound, and you kind of like just like you developed your own like writing style and your own like voice, you developed your own tone.
Yeah.
And so tell me about like moving, like, because there's one of those moments where like, okay, now I'm like officially like I'm a guitarist, I have my own sound. Where do you become like an artist now? Because one thing is to be like a sideman, or one thing is to be like in a band with some guys. You're still kind of like not an artist. You're together. The band is an artist. But like when does it become like, okay, this is Josh Smith, and it's my songs, and I'm doing my thing?
Well, for me, it's been a different journey than maybe others because I've gone back and forth. You know, because when I was a kid, it was only about my stuff, you know. It was like, okay, after the Rhino Cats, first was the Rhino Cats featuring me, then it was Josh Smith and the Rhino Cats, then they left and it just became my thing, you know. Josh Smith, I called it Josh Smith and the Frost back then, but it was like, so it was my tunes, my records, my, you know, so all through high school, and then especially when I finished high school, I was on the road, you know, making records, playing bars.
You were already doing the artist thing.
Oh yeah, that's what I wanted to do. Is all I did, you know, up until I was about 22 years old, and that's when we moved out here. And it sounds ridiculous to be like, oh, burn out at 22, but I felt that way because I'd put a lot of effort into my thing and all that, and I met my wife, who's going to be my wife, and I wanted to be like an adult and make a living and all that type of shit. So my first thought was, well, I should move somewhere where I could just be a guitar player. And LA was the first choice. Like, it was always the top of my list. I like it out here. My uncle lives out here, so I'd been out here. I'd also been out here on the road when I was doing my thing still. So I thought, well, let me try, you know, LA, we'll see. Maybe I can be a working guitar player. And yeah, so we moved out here sight unseen, 2002. No idea what I would do. No idea how to be a sideman or a session guitar player or any of those things. And that took a lot of like trial and error and shaking hands, knocking on doors, you know, the whole, you know, the drill.
Yeah.
So it's like, but it paid off, you know, in short intervals, and I'd have bad years and good years, and, you know, but eventually became stable enough where, okay, this works. I'm a working guitar player out here in LA, and I've got enough going on. And then somewhere around, you know, 8 years ago, it started to kind of turn back the other way again. After I'd been doing it for 10 plus years here, doing the sideman thing and the session thing, people started to ask, hey, why haven't you made a new record? Or then I got a record deal in Europe and they wanted me to come over and play gigs in Europe. And it was like, okay, maybe I'll make a new record. All right, so I make a record. And then that leads to another record and another tour. And now I get a new booking agency for this country and this territory. And little by little, it just kind of started to turn around. And I guess, yeah, I also started to build a different following from like the one I had as a kid, the blues following. Now it started to be obvious to me, all these new fans I'm making are more like guitar people. I'm building this fan base of guitar world and guitar fans, and okay, I'll give it more of a shot. So I'll put more effort into that. But it was totally natural how it just kind of flipped back around to that. Yeah.
Isn't that interesting? Like sometimes you have your goals set on this one thing, and it's not the right time.
Yeah.
And then when you're not even thinking about it, it comes and finds you.
It's a lot what it's like, and it's, you know, being an artist, trying to make your entire living from like your own thing is very, very difficult and frustrating, but also incredibly rewarding when you're able to even come close to like paying your bills only off of like your own music or something like that. That's completely created by you. It's pretty cool, you know?
Yeah.
So I'm getting close to that. I still do other sessions, and, you know, now it's like we have to be so diverse as musicians. I've got, you know, money that comes from instructional stuff and from pedals and gear, like we said, that I helped design, and you know, from YouTube and from this and that. And it's like, it all adds up. But it's all generated mostly by me, like the guitar player me and my music and those things. That's really rewarding.
Yeah, that's an incredible blessing to be able to do that, you know. Yeah. And, you know, LA is that kind of town where you're afforded that ability, you know what I'm saying? Yeah. But, you know, the world's becoming so close again because of the internet. Yeah. I got here in 2013. And I had not seen you yet. I guess you were busy. You weren't in town or something. Around 2016 or 17, you came to like Super Soul once, and I was like, "Oh man, that's Josh Smith."
Okay, yeah. Well, I probably came because Lamar was playing.
Yeah, probably. Yeah, we have friends in common and all that. And I was like, "Oh man, that's that guy." You know, so I remember thinking like he must have just moved here. But I looked at your bio, and you've been here since
2002.
2002. So you've been a busy. You've gone up and down the whole. You've checked it all out.
Yeah. Probably around 2010. 2012, I stopped the grind of going out to all the jams and all that stuff. I was working enough that I had kind of lost interest in like trying to chase the next gig and always be, oh, who's the MD of that? Let me go meet that guy. Let me go go to this hang.
The social thing.
I lost kind of a lot of interest in that once I passed 30 years old, you know, and yeah, the little by little it started to flip to where I was starting to focus on some of my own stuff again too. And also I had got into gigs that I always seemed to get on these gigs that just lasted a long time. So maybe they weren't the best paying gigs, but they were always like the most rewarding and loyal. So like playing with Raphael Sadiq, with, you know, Lamar and Charles and all those guys, that was like, yeah, you know, you're talking about 7-8 year stretch of playing with those guys.
That's awesome.
That's a long stretch of, you know, playing good music with good people. So I wasn't always just like looking for, oh, how can I get on that Mariah Carey gig or whatever. You know,
right.
It was never. I kind of lost interest in that eventually.
Yeah, I haven't been here that long, and I've kind of lost interest.
Well, dude, I remember I had been working a lot, and I had jumped from this tour to that tour and this tour to that tour, and I got a call. I was playing with Raphael, but it was kind of early on in my joining with Raphael. And I got a call from someone I know saying, hey, Christina Aguilera needs a new MD. Are you interested? And I'd never been MD on anything out here, not yet. And I was like, sure, I'm interested in that. And I just remember like going through the process of trying to become the MD, like going to meet and all this stuff. It's like, yeah, I'm already over this. I don't want to be involved in it. And it had nothing to do with her.
No,
it was
no.
Just like, the music, it was just like.
The process.
I don't think I want to do that. I don't know that I want to climb to the highest levels of sidemandom,
Yeah.
Yeah. So.
Yeah, it's funny because I think what that, to me, reminds me of is that there's so many things you can do out here.
Yeah.
But you really got to figure out what it is that works for you, or what where you fit in that big scheme of things. You know what I mean? Because you can't force a triangle into the circle or the circle into the square. Or whatnot.
Yeah.
But they're out here. The opportunities are out here, and that's not to say we don't have the skills to do it. But like, is that who you really are and what you want to do, or how you want to make your mark is a different question.
Yeah. The being on the road and then having it end and having to struggle and try to find something else fast. That is a terrifying feeling, because you could have the best like 4 months of your life on the road, first class hotels, make good money, and then you could go 7 months without work. You know what I mean? And that feeling just started to be like, I can't deal with this anymore. And it could be, next thing you know, it could be 30 years gone by. Where, you've done unbelievable stuff. I've done it. I played on the Grammys with fucking Mick Jagger, or with Elton John and all these incredible things, but it don't add up to like, oh my God,
Yeah.
There's not that many of those gigs left where you stay playing with, with Paul McCartney for 20 years like those guys have now. My friends, Brian and Rusty and these guys. There's 4 of those gigs in existence,
Right.
So it's like, otherwise it's a giant struggle back and forth, and I wanted to get off that train.
So you've been around the world now, yeah. And you made your home here, LA. You've been here since 2002. At what point did you say, okay, I'm gonna like double down and build this studio? Because this is like quite an achievement you have.
Thanks, man. It was mostly, it's a dream always. Oh, I'm going to have my own studio, And when things started to change and I was doing more of my own music, around that same time, I was also doing it was the peak of my session activity where people were having me come play, but also starting to mail me stuff to play on, like Tim, like Tim Pierce. Nowhere near as many as Tim gets mailed.
He's a busy guy.
But like that, I started to get some things coming in like that. So it was also at a time when I had worked a decent amount, and my wife had been busting her butt working the whole time we've been here, where we saved some money. And it all like coalesced in this magic moment when for, 8 months, the prices of houses went down for the first time since we'd lived here. This was 2012 or something like that, I think. Yeah. And so we bought this house, and it had, never been updated. It needed a ton of work. It was built in 1950. And it never had any improvements done to it. So we fixed up the house first. But the main reason we picked this house was because I liked the neighborhood. But also it had this detached garage in the back. And it had a large lot that I could add on to the garage possibly and make a studio. It was like, I'll do that the rest of my life, We bought the house. So who knows how long it'll take.
Right.
And so little by little, I kind of made the plans for the studio and just kind of dove into it, and it took 2.5 years, 3 years to kind of build it. And
I watched it on social media. You were like, "Oh, we put up this, we did that," and I watched it kind of come together.
And then all of a sudden, it was like, "Whoa, it's done! Like it works," And then I changed gear. I'd improved the gear part of it. I'd improved this. I get the console, things like that, and it was just like I didn't ever think it would become like anywhere other than like a place for me to record my own music and to do guitar sessions. But it's turned into like a place where other people have come now to when I produce records for them, which was another thing I never thought I'd ever do, and now I really enjoy it. And not only do I really enjoy it, it's become like a decent part of my yearly income, like, you know, a handful of records a year that are not my own, you know, where I'm producing. And sometimes they come here, sometimes they don't. Sometimes I go somewhere and produce a record, but I'm really enjoying doing that and trying to build that up more and more every year. So, like, yeah, there's been some cool records in the last few years that I've been lucky to be involved in.
Yeah, a couple of the guys, I actually know Jamie personally.
Yeah.
But the first guy that I know of that you produced, I think, was Seth Rosenbloom.
And Art Menezes, whose new record just came out. Yeah.
Art.
So I did Art's last record that was recorded here at the studio. I just did his new one, which literally just came out this week. Jamie Arrett, who lives here in town and is a good friend, his record, it wasn't recorded here. It was recorded at another studio. I was there. I produced, and then we did all the guitars here and mixed and all that.
He's a great
Seth.
player.
Seth flew here from.
All three of them were great.
Yeah, Seth flew from Boston here, stayed in the guest room,
Nice.
you know, and made the record here. So yeah, there's been a lot of. I also produced a record for Art's. Well, she's not his girlfriend anymore, but her name is Dana, and she's more of a pop record, Amy Winehouse style.
Nice.
That was cool to do like a non-guitar player-y record here at the studio. So yeah, like I've got a lot of artists wanting to come here, and it's just a matter of like finding the schedule and that. And then I've also been producing these records with Joe Bonamassa. So we produced Reese Winans' record a couple years ago. We produced Joanna Connor's album, which will be out in January. And literally, I just got back this week from finishing up production on Eric Gale's new album, which Joe and I are producing together.
Are you serious?
Yeah.
That's a dream come true, man.
Yeah.
Eric Gales is like, oh my gosh. These two together, I can't even picture it.
Oh, dude. If we couldn't handle the guitar work between Joe, Eric, and myself, we're in the wrong business.
Right,
you know?
right. Yeah, that must have been a heavy hang, man.
It was, man. Joe and I really we wanted to make the best record we could for Eric because we love Eric.
Yeah.
And there was selfishly like a record, at least for me, that I wanted to see Eric make that he's never made. Like, you know, when I listened to his records over the years, not that I don't enjoy them, but like where I felt like we can raise this up to another level and show people really how special this guy is. And it was like a mandate, like we're going to make this record the greatest Eric Gale's record ever. I think we succeeded. You know, it'll be out sometime next year.
Yeah, man. And talk about greatness, man. It's got to be
very
great.
special, man.
Yeah, he's it's such a, like, you know how they say your personality comes out in your playing?
Yeah.
Yeah, man. You get to see like so many sides of him, man. Because he's like a very soulful player.
He's an open book in all ways. Like it just pours out of him. You know, so it's emotion, it's playing, it's talking, it just pours out of Eric. You know, that's who he is what you see. And he's a special guy. And, you know, we all know people who have a gift, you know, but it's not just that. He certainly has a gift, but he's also put in the time, and he's very special.
Yeah. Well, all three of you are, man. I mean,
thank you.
Yeah, you're a fantastic player. I mean, I really appreciate you having me come through, man.
Yeah,
and
dude, I'm happy to have you.
Yeah, man. I wish you the best. I'm really happy for you. I mean, you found like another hat to wear. You know, a producer.
That's right. Yeah.
You got artist, recording artist, sideman. Obviously, that's easy. That's the easy part.
Yeah, I'm not going out on the road anymore for anybody but myself, unless Eric Clapton or Paul McCartney call.
Right,
That's
right.
it, you know.
Right. Yeah, you get that British accent on the phone. You'll be
Yeah,
like,
maybe you'll get
pay me in pounds. But yeah, man, I'm really happy about the channel too, man, because I see you've connected with some amazing people on that level too. I've seen you collaborate with Rick Beato, and I think I saw you do something with Brett SHULL as well.
Yeah, RHETT, yeah.
And then, did you do something with Tim Pierce?
I've done a few things with Tim, going over to his studio that he's put on his channel. Yeah.
Yeah, man.
And looking at those guys, it opened my eyes to kind of what I should put a little effort into this. Honestly, talking to Rick, we got on the phone, and I think it was a 3-hour phone conversation in which he just kind of broke down for me what he does, and he kind of just said, dude, what are you doing? You got to do this. Like, try. Just put some effort in. You'll see results. And he was right. Like, I do already see results, and it's really cool, like, building up this little community. Like it sounds stupid, but it's like, yeah, the rulers. Like I love it. Like I'm building like a whole new group of people who are interested in what I do, and like I'm communicating with them every day, and it's really fun, Yeah.
You really are a natural at it, man.
Thank you, man.
Yeah, I've watched a lot of people start channels. Obviously I started my own.
Yeah.
And it is a lot of work. And I'm sure all those guys we mentioned will attest to that. It takes work, hard work.
Yeah.
And you got to stay on it. And, you're doing a great job. And I watched the interviews and the way they flow, and you ask great questions.
Thanks,
and they lead to cool places,
Yeah, the hardest part is the technical side, I think. I do feel relatively comfortable in front of the camera. I feel comfortable talking to people, asking people questions. I feel comfortable explaining things to guitar players, talking music. I like to do it. I do it anyways. All day long I talk about this shit. So that part's fine. It's like, oh, I have to edit this down so it looks good. I have to make a thumbnail that draws in people. I have to, oh no, the vocals weren't loud enough on this one, or that. I'm still figuring all that out. Yeah, because it's different skills that I haven't quite learned yet.
Yeah, all new gear that we have to learn.
All new gear. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, thank you for being on the podcast and for having me over.
Yeah.
And thank you for showing us around.
You got it, man.
Yeah,
thank you.
Yeah, pleasure, dude. I just want to thank Josh for being so generous with his time, giving us a tour of the studio, and sharing so much with us. I hope you guys enjoyed this episode of Fretbuzz as much as I enjoyed making it. If you did, please make sure you like, share, and comment. And if you haven't already subscribed, go ahead and ring the bell. That way you'll get notified every Wednesday when we upload more videos just like this one. Till next week, see you on the other side. Hit it.